You're being polite. You are smiling. You're saying the right things. And somehow, in the middle of the conversation, you feel it. That quiet feeling that nobody is really taking you seriously. They're nodding. They're half listening. They're looking past you. You're not being argued with. You're just being tolerated. That feeling isn't in your head. It's real. And it's telling you something important. And the worst part, you've probably been trying harder because of it. Being more helpful, more agreeable, more thinking that if you just give enough, people will finally start treating you the way you deserve. But here is what nobody tells you. Trying harder is making it worse. Every time you work to earn someone's respect, you are showing them that you don't already have it. And people don't respect someone who is quietly begging to be respected. They just get more comfortable taking you for granted. You weren't taught this. Nobody sat you down and explained how respect actually works. You were taught to be kind, to be humble. Do not take up too much space. And those aren't bad things. But somewhere along the way, that teaching got twisted. Instead of being genuinely humble, you started shrinking. Instead of being kind, you started saying yes when you meant no. Instead of being polite, you started making yourself smaller just to keep the peace. And now you wonder why people walk past your feelings without even stopping. This isn't about your worth. Your worth was never the question. The question is the signal you've been sending. And right now, without knowing it, you've been sending the wrong one. Picture two people walking into the same job interview, same resume, same experience, same answers on paper, but one of them gets the offer. Not because they said something smarter, because of how they moved through the room before they sat down, the pace they walked at, whether their eyes were steady or scanning for approval, whether they waited to be given space or simply took it. Respect is decided before you say anything meaningful. People aren't consciously judging you in those first seconds. It happens below that, like how you can walk into a room and instantly sense whether someone is comfortable or on edge. You don't analyze it, you just feel it. And everyone in every room is doing the same thing with you. So here's something specific you can change today. Stop rushing your words. Most people speed up when they feel unheard, as if talking faster will earn them more attention. It does the opposite. It signals urgency, and urgency signals that you're not sure you deserve the time. Slow your pace slightly. Let your sentences land before the next one begins. People will stop cutting you off mid-sentence as often, because your pacing quietly signals that you expect to be heard. That's not a trick. That's a frequency shift. And people tune into it without realizing why. Most people carry a quiet, invisible need. The need to be liked, to be chosen, to be approved of. And that need leaks out in small ways. Laughing a little too fast at someone else's joke. Checking someone's face after every sentence. Softening every opinion the moment someone pushes back. Marcus Aurelius understood this at the deepest level. He said that the person who depends on others for their sense of peace will always be at their mercy. He called it a kind of inner slavery. Not chains on your body, chains on your self-worth. Because the moment your value lives inside someone else's reaction, you've quietly handed them control over you. And people feel that transfer. They may not name it, but they stop treating you like an equal. The shift isn't to pretend you don't care. That's just another mask. It's to build something real inside yourself that stays steady when someone doesn't clap. Not because you're cold, but because your sense of yourself no longer depends on their response. Something worth naming before going further. Not every situation where you feel disrespected is a signal about your inner state. Sometimes the environment is genuinely toxic. Sometimes the power structure around you, at work, at home, in certain relationships, makes it harder to hold your ground without real consequences. That's real. But here's what stays true even inside those constraints. You still have control over your internal standard. You still decide what you silently accept as normal. The person who maintains quiet dignity, who doesn't perform resentment, who doesn't collapse into people-pleasing either, that person is always treated differently. Not perfectly, but differently. because dignity has a presence that's hard to ignore, even for people who don't want to respect you. Every day, without realizing it, you're running a small classroom. The students are every person in your life. You're teaching them constantly, not with words, with what you allow. Here's a real scenario. You have a colleague who takes credit for your ideas in meetings. The first time, you say nothing. The second time, you still say nothing. By the seventh time, they don't even pause before doing it. Not because they're monsters, because you taught them through your silence that there's no cost. Epictetus saw this clearly. He says, "You can't always control what happens around you, but you have absolute control over how you respond." And your response, repeated consistently, becomes your standard, not occasional resistance. A steady, practiced way of being, where your boundaries aren't announcements you make, but patterns people learn through experience. You don't need a confrontation. You need consistency. The next time that colleague takes your idea, you say clearly and calmly, "Yes, that's the direction I suggested last Friday. I'm glad it's getting traction." No anger, no scene, just a calm, factual correction. Done once, it's a moment. Done every time, it becomes a reputation. Most people skip the next piece entirely because it feels too simple. Silence. Not the silence of someone who has nothing to say, the silence of someone who has no need to rush. Think about the last time someone challenged you in a way that felt slightly off. What did you do? Most people fill that space immediately. They explain, they justify, they laugh it off. All of that movement, that's the sound of someone uncomfortable with the weight of the moment. And people read it instantly as uncertainty. Lao Tzu's central idea from the Tao Te Ching was exactly this. True strength doesn't assert itself. It doesn't compete. It doesn't scramble. It simply is. And everything else adjusts around it. Water doesn't fight the rock. It moves around it patiently. And eventually, the rock changes shape. Try it once this week. When someone says something that would normally make you rush to defend yourself, don't. Breathe. Wait 2 seconds. Respond at half your usual speed. Watch how the other person suddenly becomes more careful, more measured. That pause didn't make you look weak. It made you look like someone completely at home in themselves. Here's the deepest truth, the one that changes everything underneath. How you treat yourself in private is the instruction manual you hand to the world. Not the version you present online, the real version, the way you speak to yourself after a mistake. Whether you keep promises to yourself when nobody's watching, whether you rest when you need to, or grind yourself down because you don't feel like you've earned it yet. Humans are wired to mirror the value someone places on themselves. When you consistently treat your own time and energy as something valuable, others calibrate to that without being told. When you treat yourself as something that can be interrupted, dismissed, or overridden, others learn that standard too. This isn't about self-care as a trend. It's about the most basic signal a human being sends. I matter, or I don't. And you've been deciding which one to broadcast every single day. The people who naturally command respect aren't running the system. Something shifted in them, quietly, privately, where they stopped needing permission to exist fully. They stopped shrinking in rooms where they felt uncertain. They stopped performing humility while secretly starving for validation. They just became, completely and without apology, themselves. That settled, quiet energy is something a room feels before it understands. It's not dominance. It's not arrogance. It's simply a person who has stopped being at war with their own presence. You're not far from that. You were never far from it. The habit of making yourself easy to overlook was never originally yours. It was learned, absorbed from rooms where it felt safer to be small, from relationships where being too much of yourself cost you something. You adapted. And that adaptation served you once. It just doesn't anymore, as the person on the other side of unlearning is not louder, not harder, not colder, just completely, quietly, unmistakably themselves. And that is the kind of person a room never quite forgets. You won't feel this video today. You'll feel it 3 days from now in the middle of a conversation when something clicks. When that happens, come back. Subscribe so you're here when the next one lands. And the